Hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Thank you so much for doing this. Just to give the people who are watching this a bit of context, I used to work for Goose, and Goose actually was one of the first people who inspired me to go and do my own business, start my own agency. And I wanted to do this for a really long time, get mentored by Goose and lock him in, but he's busy creating one of the fastest growing businesses in Australia, which is Dashdot. And we're not going to talk about Goose today. It's all about me today. Goose is going to mentor me. So if you guys want to learn more about Goose, please go and Google him, and you'll find plenty of information. So this is pretty much just me asking the questions that are affecting me in my business journey at the moment and getting Goose's feedback on how I can fix them, because he already has grown a pretty big company and one of the fastest growing, like I said, completely remote, and which is where I want to go as well with my journey. So yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
It's a pleasure. I mean, as you mentioned, like we've been working together for a little while now, and if people do Google me, they're mostly going to see videos that have been edited by you or your team anyway. So, but in the function of doing this, I love this stuff. Like, and I really love to help people with it. So yeah, I'm stoked, and let's dive in.
The first question, we're getting right into it. My agency has been growing for the past few months. I started back in September, and I'm seeing a growth based on the money that's hitting my account. And I'm also calculating the net profit and the margins and everything. But I'm just trying to understand how exactly should I track the growth of my business? What kind of metrics should I put in place? And should I have rituals on a daily basis, weekly basis, or on a monthly basis? Yeah, that's my first question. I'm just confused about how to track the growth.
So, firstly, I can answer those questions really, really quickly and easily, but I think we need to go around a little bit of a journey to arrive at the most correct answer. But I'll tell you where we're going to go, and then we'll get there. So basically, yes, you do need to track KPIs. You shouldn't measure your growth by your bank balance. You should be measuring your growth based on KPIs, and those KPIs should be based on department-based KPIs or function-based KPIs in your business. So, for example, you might have sales KPIs, you might have product delivery KPIs, and all this kind of stuff. The combination of all of those KPIs will give you the optics you need on the business, and the way that you structure those KPIs is in what we call a dashboard, right? So a company dashboard. And again, we'll come back to this. I'm going to touch at a higher level, and we'll come back to it so we've got more fidelity. And the rituals you need to have are going to be, number one, you need a weekly leadership team meeting or some kind of like weekly meeting, even if you are the leadership team, just you right now. You need one meeting once a week where you aggregate and you get all of the updated KPIs and you review the weekly performance. So it's a weekly cadence of reviewing all of your KPIs. But then each of the individual teams need to have their own individual meetings. So, for example, if you have a sales team, you typically want to have a daily huddle. At least once a day in the morning, where you review your KPIs and do a number of other things as part of that ritual, the rituals that exist. Performance-driven teams, i.e. teams that are driven by performance-based outcomes, i.e. numbers. So, for example, in our business, we have a property acquisition team. That's numbers-oriented. There's like, okay, we want to buy a certain number of properties, we want to do X. They have KPIs. If you have project-driven teams, so, for example, we have like our technology team. There's less KPIs and that's more projects and milestones. So there's different ways of measuring it. And based on the type of team and the type of work will dictate how often you need to have the rituals. Because if you have a milestone or a project-based team structure where it's less kind of like specifically number KPI driven, probably weekly is going to be okay. But if you've got a performance-driven team, probably daily. Now, does that kind of make sense? I want to zoom out and come back around to it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yes.
All right, cool. I firstly need to understand what is the goal, right? So to whatever degree, I know you're going to be posting this on YouTube, so to whatever degree you're comfortable with, can you help me understand, current size, revenue, what's the goal, what's the target? And the reason that this is important is because the solutions that we create should be relevant to the business you want to create. Because if you said to me right now, for example, you're doing $10,000 a month and you want to get to $1 million a month or $10 million a month, then we're going to need to think about like highly scalable outcomes, and I'll probably give you answers that would be dictated around how do you get to 8 figures. But if you said, for example, I'm doing $10,000 a month and I want to get to $50,000 a month, and then I'm happy with a $50,000 a month business, the answers are going to be different based on that. So what's the goal?
Yeah. So the goal is to go to $1 million revenue.
Sorry, just to clarify, $1 million a month or $1 million a year?
I wanted to generate $1 million this year.
Yep.
And then from there onwards, I wanted to start recurring $1 million per month.
There's a big difference between $1 million a year and a recurring $1 million a month. There's several steps between between those. But good. The journey is going to be broken down into a couple of steps. So getting to your first million is kind of the first step. Then you'll probably your journey to sort of 3 to 5 million is going to be the next step, and then your journey from 3 to 5 up to 10 is going to be the next step. There's a bit of variability in there, but they'll require different things at different stages. Okay, so in this first stage, it's like just to kind of really cook it down pretty simply. It's more about marketing and sales than it is about building a scalable company, because you don't need to be scalable to get to $1 million a year, and getting to $1 million a year is not that hard. And I can see you've sent me a couple of questions in advance, and I can see you've got some kind of performance issues, or how do you scale an agency based type thing, and we'll dig into that. But the first goal is $1 million a year, right? And then you want to get to $12 million a year of recurring revenue.
Yeah,
all right,
that's correct. Can I talk you through how I arrived at $1 million revenue, and you can tell me if my thinking is wrong. So when I thought about $1 million revenue this year, I broke it down to how many clients do I need, and how much of revenue that I need to make per month, and that became 83,333. And then I broke it down to how many clients do I need, and I thought, okay, average, I would need 15 clients per month to achieve that 83,333. And I am now working towards getting that 15 clients, but I'm already at February and I still don't have those 15 clients.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is my thinking wrong around $1 million this year revenue target?
No, it's absolutely not wrong. So when you very first start, it's really hard to consider. Have you ever made $1 million in a year? No, right? So making $1 million in a year can be like, oh my God, is this just like I'm shooting for the moon and all of this kind of stuff? It's actually not that hard, and the way you thought about it was correct. Right? To get to $1 million, all you need to do is make $83,333 a month. Now, you're not going to do that every month. Okay, it's not going to be a linear pathway. So what you kind of need to do is you need to map out what the growth pathway is going to look like from, let's say, from 1 client or 2 clients, or however many you start with in month 1. Okay, then literally on a spreadsheet, work out. Okay, if I grow by, I'm not going to do live maths, compound maths, but let's say it's 5% a month. For 12 months, does that get me to $1 million a month, right? And so then you're not in month 2 going, why don't I have 15 clients yet? You could be in month 2 going, okay, well, I've gone from 3 clients to 5 clients, which means I'm 100% on track. Now, this goes back into the KPIs, okay? So understanding what you're trying to specifically achieve each month is really, really important. You're never going to get to the goal in 1 month. What that's going to mean is that 15 per month is going to be the average across the year. So by the time you get to month 12, it's probably going to be like 25 or something like that, right? So you need to work out what that growth ramp looks like and then act accordingly. There's a couple of ways to break this down, but very broadly, there's only 3 things you need to think about in your business: traffic, conversion, and delivery, right? So delivery could be product, or in your case, it's delivery. It's a service-based business, right? And each of those is going to matter at different stages of the journey more than the rest of it. As long as your clients are happy, it kind of doesn't matter if your delivery is a little bit sloppy in the first instance. As long as your clients are relatively happy, the thing you need to focus on first and foremost is traffic and then conversion. So do you have a reliable way to get new clients yet?
No. So it's pretty much based on word of mouth.
Yeah. So
the clients they just recommend me to other people, and they just come and sign up. I don't have a sales process yet.
And you don't have any, and because what you're relying on is people, word of mouth and stuff, you have no control over it. So you can't How many new clients are you going to sign up in March?
2.
2. You're going to sign up 2. Do you know where they're coming from?
Yeah. So another client that we're working with, he recommended us to 2 more people, and then we are. So, well, I don't know whether they will sign up, but we're still in the negotiations phase.
Yeah. So you know them because they're already in your sales process, right? But in terms of generating new opportunities, you wouldn't know where they're coming from, right? Because you don't have a reliable way to generate new traffic. And so think about your business as front to back. Unless you have a consistent, reliable source of traffic coming into the business, that's going to be the first thing you need to solve, because you don't know how much resource you can apply on the back end of your business to solve any of the delivery issues until you're very confident on what is happening on the front end of your business. Okay, so the front end is the traffic. It's like, where are you getting the opportunities from? Kind of most consistent way or most controlled way you can do it is paid advertising, because it's like it's a very scientific approach, but you don't have to do it that way. What you need to do, though, is build a system that can reliably get you a consistent number of self-generated opportunities. So you can do that with organic. You can definitely do that with organic. You can do that on LinkedIn. You can do all kinds of stuff. But what you would then need to do is you would then need to decide or define what specific actions are required to do that. So, for example, you may do the work to then find out, okay, in order to get 10 new inquiries from LinkedIn, I need to post once a day, every day, 7 days a week on LinkedIn. Okay, great. Let's just assume that, let's just take that as an example. So then you would have a KPI, a marketing KPI. It's like post like seven posts a week on LinkedIn. Now, maybe it's 14, maybe it's 21, who knows? But the point is you need to develop the system, a measurable system, which you can then understand how people are getting into your business. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yes.
Perfect.
So the question around that,
yep.
Say that I'm getting 2 clients if I post every day, and that happened for the first week, and second week I got no clients, and then third week I got no clients as well. How do I benchmark? How do I create that KPI around, okay, I would need like 2 clients if I post 7 days? How do I find that number?
Well, that sounds like a system that is as yet unrefined. Okay, so that means that you still need to work out how that content client acquisition system works. So then you would need to be like, okay, what kinds of posts would I need to post that generate the most activity? Do I need to think about increasing my engagement? Am I responding to everyone's comments and all this kind of stuff? And so it's not as simple as just going, oh, if I just post. You need to then look at it as a whole conversion system. Just in the same way that if I'm going to run ads, it is not enough for me to go, well, I published an ad on Facebook and I'm spending money on it. So therefore, where are my clients? It's like, well, I don't know. Have you written the right copy? Is the creative correct? What about the targeting? Have you got the right offer? What's the headlines? You've got to think about all these things and then optimize them. And as you continue to optimize them, you then will start to get more and more consistent results. And so what you have is an unoptimized system. Now, the reason that's important to kind of lean into is it's not just as simple as posting. You have to post with intent to get a specific outcome. So if you have, for example, a specific dream client in mind who you want to, what you should do is you should think about, okay, picture them in your mind, create posts that are designed to specifically help them and engage with them, and then start to, then you can do all the other engagement tactics like tag them in the comments, respond to comments, do all these kind of things to drive more engagement around those posts. You think about it as a traffic generation mechanism, as opposed to like, well, I hope if I just stick up some posters around the streets, people are going to call me. You've really got to think about that as a very targeted approach to get people to move through your funnel. Now, the whole kind of funnel approach, it's not just a paid ads thing. A lot of people think it's like ad to landing page to it's any way that you get attention and traffic into your business has a funnel. You're going to take it from people from just out there in the ether and then take them on the next step. So then what is the next step? Are they clicking off the post? Are you going to engage with them in a DM? And then you have to track all of that. And all of this, again, comes back into your KPIs. So let's just say theoretically, and this is just to paint a picture for you to help you to kind of understand it. Let's say that you establish that your funnel process, and I've just picked LinkedIn as a random platform because I know that you're trying to engage with business people typically because they're going to be your clients. Let's just say that you established that your funnel was going to be post on LinkedIn, and then anyone who engages with your post, you're going to send them a DM.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that DM, you're going to try and book them into a call. Let's just, for very simplicity's sake. So then what have you got? You've got 3 KPIs right there. Posts, DMs, calls. So when you then start working through all the conversion metrics on those, so, okay, I posted once, I got 10 comments, I sent 10 messages and I got 5 booked calls. And then I had 5 booked calls and I signed up 1 client. Okay, so now all of a sudden you've then got a conversion metric which goes, okay, if I post, I get this and these kind of results. Now, not every post is going to be the same, which is why you need to track. You should be tracking those kind of KPIs daily, right? In your business, you track them daily, and then once a week, review your weekly performance.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then to start off, am I just going to assume, okay, this is a number that I want to achieve? Is that how I would?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. So firstly, you need to map out what is your target number of clients per month.
Gotcha.
Then you're gonna have to. So then you're gonna need to reverse engineer what's required to get to the number of clients you need. Then, yeah, you'll basically need to apply a whole bunch of effort to try and work out what the baseline looks like. Because if you don't know what the baseline looks like, you might be like, well, I posted once a day because I thought, it's like, well, man, maybe try posting 10 times a day and work out if that's too much, right? In the early stages, you want to apply as much effort as possible because you're not going to get it right. The less things you do, the harder it is to work out what's going to win, right? If you're going to post 1 post a day just to kind of see what kind of messaging works versus if you post 10 times a day, all with slightly different messaging, guess what? Like you'll get to the answers quicker that you're trying to look for. So this is just a process to continue to work through to try and find that sweet spot. Now, we could spend an hour talking about how to get just that piece right, how to specifically target the right types of people and get that kind of messaging correct. But I think from a functional perspective to think about, you need to solve for the traffic piece first, okay? Once you then solve for the traffic piece, you then need to go, okay, now I'm getting traffic and I'm getting attention. The next step is conversion. Okay. And we started to touch on that when I was like, if your hypothetical funnel was, DM and then call, that starts to be conversion. Because then conversion is, what's the sale process? How do I take people from attention to conversion? The sales process is the transition between marketing and becoming a client. So you can kind of define where that step starts and finish. Is it marketing until it's a booked call in the calendar? Or if you're doing a kind of more outreach-based approach using DMs, I would say that DMs would be a sales approach. An easier kind of way to define this is one-to-many versus one-to-one. So when you're doing activities which are one-to-many, which is like, hey, come over here, I'm doing this stuff, I'm doing some dancing, I'm posting videos, I'm posting long-form content, I'm doing whatever, that's the kind of one-to-many. Gather round. And then when you're individually trying to connect with an individual, either because they're booking in directly or you're reaching out to them directly, that becomes a sales approach because that's one-to-one.
Right.
I'm going to skim over some of this stuff because I know we could spend an hour just thinking about that. Then you've got the delivery component. Now, in the first, and delivery is basically how do you deliver the goods and services that you're selling. And if you think about the business front to back like that, you're then going to solve that all the way through. Now, you're not going to solve it perfectly, okay? Because at any given point in time, any one of those 3 is going to be, for lack of a better term, fucked, right? It's not going to be working. Either you're going to have tons of, in your case, you've got a editing-based business, you're going to have tons of editors ready to go and, oh my God, we don't have enough work. Guess what's broken? It's either your traffic or your conversion. Or it's going to be the other way around where you're like, man, we're getting so much traffic and we're converting everyone and it's, oh my God, everyone wants to work with us. Holy shit, we can't keep up with all the work. Oh my God, the delivery side is broken.
That's the issue that we are facing right now because we have a lot of work and we're struggling to keep up with the workload at the moment.
Okay, we'll come back to that because I want to tackle that head on. Because the reason I'm banging on about this is because trying to think about your business as a system rather than as some kind of spontaneous, life-giving, creative act in which sales randomly pop into or out of existence, right, which has got no controllability. If you think of it as a system, then you can start to have some understanding of where you're going. Because one of the hardest parts in business is working out when do you hire, who do you hire, how do you resource accordingly. And if you don't really know what is, or if you don't have a good idea, even, like you're never going to know, but if you don't have a good idea of where your business is going to be in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 months, I mean, how are you supposed to make any decisions? And the only way that you get that reliability is by working out how can you build a consistent traffic and conversion system. Once you can do that, then you might be able to then start resourcing for where you're going and not just for where you are. Now, so thinking through that, just to kind of expand on the original point of how do you sort of track that, when you do that, you should literally, and I've done this in a spreadsheet and we still use this in our kind of KPI system today, just write in a spreadsheet all of the steps in a business. Okay, so it could be how do I get leads? Where do they come from? Then what happens to them next? And 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 the more granularity you build that out with, the more you're going to be able to measure all of the steps. Because it's not just, for example, book a sales call and then client. Well, it's like, well, there's probably other steps that happen in there as well. Did we send them a proposal? What was did they accept that, what was the proposal sent to accepted rate? And so the more that you break that down into a scientific system, the more that you can understand that you put one unit of activity into the top of the system. I think about it like that. So in our case, we're a very advertising driven business. So I know with a very high degree of confidence, if we put $1,000 in the top of the machine, we will get X out the bottom of the machine. And that's how to think about it. And that will basically form the basis of your KPIs. That then gets broken into departments. So then you'll be like, okay, so these are marketing-based KPIs, which is like attention getting. These are sales-based KPIs, which is conversion-based. Then we'll have delivery. Our delivery is broken up into 2 sections, client success and property, but you could have, your delivery team KPIs, and then you would have operations KPIs as well. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so then that's how you think about breaking that up. And before we kind of move on to solving some of the other stuff, is that helpful in how to think about this part of your business?
Yeah, it's very helpful. I feel like you answered all the questions that I had in one go because it felt like there's like a root problem that I had understanding how exactly I should view my business in terms of steps from front to back. And I was only thinking about the back part, like how am I going to keep solving the problems that the clients have? How do I keep giving a really good service, really good product, and then making sure the clients are happy on a day-to-day basis? And that's attached to my second question, which I feel like you've already answered in some kind of way, but I'll ask it anyway.
Before you ask it, can I just point out what you just said there? That's the problem with 99% of business owners. The business owners who don't scale, the business owners who stay stuck, the business owners who struggle, the business owners who ultimately never make it are the ones who are the artists who just think, if I just make the product better, if I just deliver a better service, if I just do this back end shit really, really well, if I just do it really, really well, I'll build it and they will come. And it never does, or very rarely. Now, there are examples of, like product-led growth as a whole strategy, but that's not standalone. Let's just sit in the corner and make things really nice and then hope that people are going to come and start showering us with money. It just does not work like that. But that is, honestly, I've spoken to so many business owners, and I don't think I've ever spoken to a business owner that's doing less than $1 million a year that hasn't thought that way, where it's like, oh, but I just want to do really good in this. It's like, dude, shut up. You need to be a traffic generating and a conversion generating machine. And by the way, you do need to know the capacity of your service capability. Because in service-based businesses, reputation matters tremendously, right? So you don't want to get a reputation of selling a dream and then just delivering shit. Like that's not good, right? So you need to understand your capacity, and let's dig into the back end in a second. But the goal should be to become oversubscribed. So let's just say you have the capacity to serve 5 clients a month right now. Let's just say that that's the number, and we'll dig into that in a minute. You shouldn't be trying to work out how do you get 5 clients a month. I mean, obviously you have a recurring base business. You need to be thinking, how do I get 10 or 20 or 30 clients a month? Because the actions that you take to create that outcome are going to mean that you're probably not going to get to the 30 client a month thing. You're probably going to fall short of that. And then you'll still be oversubscribed. You want more people trying to work with you than you can feasibly manage. The reason that is important, and it's very important, and most people don't ever do it. The reason that's really important is, number one, you can sign up better clients. Rather than signing up a client because you're like, well, shit, I mean, we've got to hit our revenue targets, and all right, I mean, they're a bit of a dickhead and I don't really like the work, but hey, let's just sign them up as a client, right? You actually get to make sure you're signing up the best quality clients, and that's good for you and it's good for the client. Okay, so that's going to result in net better outcomes for everyone involved. You have less frustrated clients, less frustrated team. Number two, you can charge more of a premium. Why? Because you're already full, right? And number three, you can put people on a waiting list. You can say, hey, look, I'd love to work with you. Right now, we're at capacity. We're going to have a couple more spots open up next month. So what I'll do right now is I'll take a deposit. We'll get you on the list, and you'll be the first cab off the rank when we get to the next one. That then builds up your pipeline of demand, which gives you more certainty about where you're going, right? Because where you're going, not where you are, is actually what you really need to get into. Because you need to then start thinking about how to resource your business in a way that's going to be that's going to meet the needs of where you're going. Now, in the earlier stages of the business, which is where you are, and this might be a controversial opinion, I don't know, but don't worry about profit. Don't worry about profit. That's not the goal. The goal is to grow. If you're worrying about profit now, you're going to be leaving opportunity on the table, when really you want to get your business to a point of sustainability. And depending on the business model, businesses doing it like a service-based, agency-based type of business model, doing less than $1 million a year is not a sustainable business, right? Because you will have people in seats, and if any one of them leaves, all of a sudden you don't have anyone to replace them, and it's a fragile system. So when we started scaling up our team, and we hired a guy, his name's Nick, and he's still in the business today. We hired him in the kind of delivery side to like help with property acquisition. And my first response was like, oh my God, yes, finally somebody else can do the work. And then instantly I was like, oh shit, what if he leaves? What if he leaves, or what if he gets sick? And I'm not sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I've got so much other work to do. Then I'd have to go back and do that other work. And I realized I wasn't safe until we could build up the capacity in the team. So, I mean, rightly or wrongly, and this is arguable, whatever, but I was like, unless we have 5 of everyone, we're not safe. And you've got to build your business up to a point where it's sustainable. And typically that's going to come like in an agency type model. And again, there's different models. And I'm a big advocate. If someone wants to do a coaching business or something, it's extremely capital light or whatever, you could do $1 million business, and it's totally it's a rocket ship. It's awesome. But in the kind of model you've got, you're probably going to want to aim to get to the sort of 3-ish million mark for it to become more stable. So the goal should be to get to there. And that doesn't mean you should never think about profits, but you should be thinking about how to reinvest the profits. And the way you think about reinvesting the profits should be reinvesting to create the business that you're trying to build, not just solve the problems that you have today. Because if you only ever try and solve the problems you have today, all you do is you're just trying to put out fires, and you're not actually building something where the fires don't exist anyway. Okay. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm trying to like dump as much info on you as possible. So your business will have a lot of fires in it at the moment, right?
Yeah, it does.
And you feel like you need to go and try and put them all out?
Yeah. So first of all, just to go back on the things that you said, it's funny how I listened to one of your reels where you talk exactly what you just said about creatives obsessed with the product, and if I create a really cool art, or if I create a really nice video, people will keep coming back. And I thought, okay, I'm a businessman now. I'm not thinking in that way, but it's funny. Like, it's definitely felt like a right hook because like it's like a wake up call. Oh shit! Like, I'm still thinking like a creative. So that's cool. Wake up call. And so yeah, my second question was how to reinvest in the business, because I am putting out a lot of fires, and I have the exact same problem that you just said. I have this guy who's a project manager, and he's the one who's managing all the projects at the moment. And I'm just scared if he gets sick or if he has to go on a holiday, there's nobody to pick that up. I'll have to pick it up and do it. And right now, with the amount of clients that we have, I'm already doing it. And if he leaves, it pretty much just the system pretty much just breaks.
So this is why it is easier to go faster than to go slower, which just sounds counterintuitive. When you're going quickly and when you're like, right, we've got so much demand coming in and we're just like, whoa, oh my God, we're growing like this. You have the ability to go, oh, I'm going to hire someone right now. I'm going to hire a gun because I know that in 2 or 3 months, we're going to be here. So I can hire for that place rather than this place. Right. And so it's actually easier to grow quicker because you can start to get ahead of yourself. Now, the challenge that you've got in your business is that there's a lot of creativity involved, which is challenging to build a system around because different clients will have different needs. And I think you've done a pretty good job at productizing your services already, which is great. So leaning into the kind of productization of services, we do things like this. And if this is what you want, we can provide a service as long as it looks like this and it meets this criteria. And that's good. The challenge is though that the work is still creative and you still need to like spend time to review the work and is the creative act being done within the guidelines and all of that kind of stuff. And like, what if it's not? And then what do you do? So it's a highly revisionary thing. And just a little anecdote that I wanted to kind of share and then I'll come back to how to tackle the project management thing as well is you can scale creativity. So Andy Warhol, like I can't remember, in the year 2000 or 2010 or something like that, like 30% or 50% of all of the world's art that transacted was Andy Warhol's. It's crazy, right? He produced so much art in his time. But the thing is, he didn't produce it. He had the factory, right? And it was called the factory because he had a whole bunch of artists working for him. And he said, right, Andy Warhol art looks like this. And they all created it. And then what he would do is just kind of go around and put a little finishing touch on it and then paint the name on it. And so you can productize creativity and you can scale creativity, but necessarily you have to create really good systems so people understand how to be creative within a specific set of guidelines. Now, the more that you have knowledge workers in your business, the riskier the business is. The knowledge workers are people who have a specific flair or a specific talent or like some specific level of experience where it's like, oh my God, we can't lose that person because they're the only ones who know how to do X, Y, Z. If you're ever in that situation, you need to work out what X, Y, Z is, and you need to build an SOP and an algorithm. And it's like, right, this is what X, Y, Z is made up of. So you can teach it to anyone.
I'm actually lucky because I understood that really early in the business when I started working because I'm an editor myself. So whenever we onboard clients, the first thing that we do is to create a brand guideline and then understand, okay, this is exactly how we edit them. This is exactly the fonts that we are going to use, the colors, the editing techniques, everything. We created SOPs, and I also created videos to guide the video editors who we are going to hire, because I understood that the video editors are my product. So I'm going to spend a lot of time training them and making them better. So I created a guideline and a video, a tutorial teaching them, okay, this is exactly how we're going to do things. And then if they learn new tricks, we share among each other on a weekly basis, and then we just all up our levels. But having said that, the problem is people are people. And we sometimes just drop back, and some editors, they don't really stick to the guideline, and there are fires on a daily basis that I have to put out. And that's the issue.
Yeah,
because
cool.
it's kind of getting into my mindset, because it's kind of getting stressed out as well on a daily basis. So
totally. No, this is good. So the question you need to ask is like, have you got the right systems in place, and have you got the right people in place? So whenever you think about designing the operating system of your business, there's 3 factors: people, process, and platform. Okay, so the first question is, have you got the right people? Now, you might have the right editors, but maybe you don't have the right project manager, or maybe you do, but maybe you need to get someone senior above that. So do you have the right people, and do they have the right capabilities? Number 2, have you got the right processes in place? Now, let's just hypothetical scenario say, well, we've trained all of our editors how to edit. We've given them these processes. We've given them these guidelines. But then, hey, they still produce products that don't meet the guidelines. Okay, so then what is the process that you need to put in place in order to make sure that there's a fail-safe for that? And it might be like, okay, so do we need another review step in the process? You know, is it like Editor finishes what they believe is the final edit. It goes for review, and then we send it back before it goes to the client. You know, like you just got to think: do we have the right process in place? Do we need to put additional steps in place? Now, putting the additional steps in place may actually result in the fact that you might need more people, or in fact, you might need additional automations or additional systems or something like that in order to manage that process effectively as well. But that'll help you to understand what it is you need in order to effectively do that. And then you've got platform. So it's like, how are people communicating and what tools are they using and all of that kind of stuff. So thinking through those steps, can you identify where you think there might be a breakdown? Do you think it might be a people issue, a process issue, or a platform issue?
I think it's a bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's completely broken. It's kind of like errors, that the human errors that are being made on a daily basis, which we need to give warnings and then just move on, and then they don't make that mistakes for another 2-3 weeks, but then suddenly, like for example, I'll give you an exact example.
Yep.
We have this guideline for the editors. If you're going to go on leave or something like that, and there's a video pending on your side, please give us at least 48 hours of notice. They pretty much stick to that guideline for the most part, but there are certain times where the editor would be like, oh, I have an emergency and I have to leave. And because this happened a couple of times, we then put another step in front of it saying, whenever you're editing something, you have to share the project file on a Google Drive so another editor can pick that project file up and then edit the video. But then we faced another issue. Oh, this project file does not have all the required information that the other editor can pick up and finish the video. So now we are figuring out, how do we actually tackle this issue?
The first thing is different problems have different solutions. So if there are measurable things that you want to make sure people do or don't do on a weekly basis, put that into your KPIs, right? So for example, let's just say you had a reasonable expectation that each editor would get their work 80% correct or 90% correct. Then you need to build a system to measure that and go, okay, such and such editor, they submitted 10 videos this week and 2 of them got rejected because they didn't follow the bloody brand guidelines, right? Then that individual would have that KPI. And if they drop below that KPI, hey, dude, only 6 of your 10 videos this week got approved, then that's a performance issue. So then you actually have that conversation. Hey, you're not meeting our standards, right? So think about what you can measure to make sure that you can hold people accountable to those measurements. And by the way, there's no point having KPIs that sit in a back cupboard. When you have KPIs, you need to communicate them regularly and frequently and openly with the team, all of the team. Everyone should be able to see everyone's KPIs. Shouldn't matter.
Gotcha.
Okay? So having performance-based measurements that you can keep people accountable to is going to be really, really important. So that should make sense there. Then there's kind of some of the process stuff, which is, but they're not uploading the right files and whatever. You need to have probably need to think about building out some process checklists for that kind of stuff. Okay, so does your file does it include all of these things? Tick, 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 tick. And guess what? By the way, that becomes measurable too. That becomes measurable. Hey, we noticed not all your files had this checkbox, and then you start to create systems for it. Now, the problem that you're now thinking is like, shit, dude, that's a lot of work. I've got to go and spend all this time. I've got to build all these systems. I've got to put management stuff in place. Man, but then I've got to go and get traffic. I've got to get people. I've got to sell them. And you're right. Yeah. And that's a problem. Okay, so then you've got to work out to what degree is this a problem? So the way you would think about that is, are your clients happy? Because it can be kind of messy in the first instance, as long as your clients are happy. As long as your clients are getting decent outcomes, you might be like, this is a really unoptimized system. Go on.
Do I then need to measure the happiness of the clients?
Yeah. Yeah, you really should.
Okay.
You really should. Yeah. And there's different ways to do that. There's things like NPS scores and, we measure it through client reviews and stuff like that. But for your business and your scale and at this level, you could probably do it by a direct contact. So you could potentially reach out to could be a simple email or text or whatever once a month to each client. Hey, I just want to check in. it could be, once a month or once every 2 months. Just want to check in. How's the process going? Do you have any feedback for me? How's your team been? Whatever. Just get the feedback, because if your clients aren't happy, you're going to end up with a doom loop in your business, and that's going to be very hard to get out of. So it can be messy as shit on the inside. As long as your clients are happy and getting the results that you've said that they're going to get, then that's okay. The moment that starts to falter, you need to pay attention to it. Now, perfection is not the goal, just so we're clear. You don't need, or in fact, you don't want 100% client satisfaction. The reason you don't want 100% client satisfaction is that means you're not pushing hard enough to grow your business. There's not enough cracks, right? If everything's perfect, you're stagnating, right? You've got too much time to sit around and solve all the problems. So a typical measurement is you sort of want between 80 and 95% satisfaction, and satisfaction can be measured in a number of ways, right? But you anything less than 80%, and you've got a problem on your hands. So that's kind of sort of 80-20ing in that kind of sense. So gotcha. Then the thinking about the solve, so that's kind of help you to understand, is this a big enough? If you're concerned that, man, I can't sign up any more clients because this thing's so shit, we can't even serve our clients properly, you probably want to think about, and this is going to come down to resource management as well, and you have asked about how to think about reinvesting in the business. I'll come back to that too. A good way to think about this is a who, not a how problem, because you can't do everything. And when Gabby and I started Dashdot, we had no money, and we also didn't know how to build a team. We didn't really know how to build a business or anything. And it took us, we went back to zero during COVID, so we kind of like lost the first 2 years. But it's taken us 5 years really to get to this point, 3 years depending on how you look at it. And knowing what I know now, we would be able to scale so much faster, because I would have been focusing on buying my time back as fast as possible. Because you are the most valuable resource in your business, because you can think about the entire business from front to back, and you can identify and think about how do we solve these different problems and QA stuff and make sure the business is aligned in the right direction. So the more that you are stuck in the weeds trying to do all of the doing, the less your business will grow. And that's just a fact. So the question you need to ask yourself is, can you find someone who is going to probably be better than you, by the way, at solving those problems? And what that could look like in this context is you could find an operations manager for your business. You don't need a COO or anything like that. The business is too small, and you don't need anything like that. But it could be an operations manager, someone who's going to help oversee all of the moving parts in the business and make sure that everyone's filling in their KPIs and we're checking, balancing everything. And they can tell you that, hey, there's a problem over here because these guys aren't meeting someone to oversee that. Or you could potentially have it a little bit more focused, where you might just have someone who's kind of more focused on the delivery, on the whole delivery section. There's a difference between a project manager and someone who's going to kind of oversee the overall function of that, either the department or the operations of the business. So I think that you probably want to think through that. And this then goes back to the first part, which you might be thinking like, shit, hiring an operations manager, I don't know if I can afford to do that, because you haven't solved the traffic piece to have the consistency to know that you can afford to see where you're going. So then it becomes about a resource management question. Now, I don't know how much cash you've got in the bank, and I don't expect you to say that on YouTube either, right?
No, that's fine. I got about saved up.
Perfect. And do you know what your operating expenses are in the business at the moment, monthly?
Yeah. It's about...
For your whole business?
Yeah.
Okay, dude, you don't have you just don't know how to invest your money. If all things being equal, if everything stayed the same, you've got 16 months of burn rate. Now, I'm assuming that doesn't include a salary for you or some living expenses for you, right?
Yeah, well, I've saved it up to put towards a house.
Okay, well, the house can come later. Like, the house can come later, right? But my point is, what you want to be thinking about is, how much runway do you have in the business? What is your acceptable level of risk? And then how much more can you invest? Okay. So if you're telling me that you've got in the bank and your genuine operating expenses in the business is a month, I would also suggest you probably need to add something onto that for you, because you need to get paid for your time in the business. Now, don't make the mistake that a lot of business owners make and think that you deserve to get paid. Really, pay yourself the minimum that you can fricking survive on, in the
Yeah,
first couple of years, just the
that's what I
minimum.
do. Yeah.
Perfect. So add that
Yeah.
on there. So let's just say for argument's sake, we bump that up to 10 grand a month in total, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've still got 10 months of burn rate. All things
Mm-hmm.
being equal, if all your clients walked out the door and you had zero revenue, you could run the business for 10 months.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, which is way too long. Business in your set of circumstances, and look, a lot of people will say 6 months. Some people will say 3 months. But if you were running with 1 month cash at bank, I wouldn't be unhappy. And so what that says to me is you've got the capacity financially to invest more deeply in your business to get to where you want to go. So what you probably want to be, and you don't want to spend it all at once and go crazy and just dump all your cash, but you have the capability in there to, for example, let's say you hired an operations manager and let's say they're on $120,000 a year, right? That's 10 grand a month. So now you're at 20 grand a month. Okay. So that means that if all your clients walk out the door, you've got 5 months of burn rate in your business. Okay. So then maybe you want to hire somebody else. Maybe you want to hire a really good executive assistant, someone who can help you to get you out of the weeds on some of the stuff as well. And maybe they're, less money than that. So start thinking that through. Now, 3 months buffer is kind of pretty normal for people to consider, but in a service-based business, you don't need as much buffer. You just don't need as much buffer, particularly if you're in a growth phase. And you should be thinking about how to grow your business faster and how do you free up the capability you need. And if you could get someone who could own and help to build the systems, by the way, in the business that you need under your direction, never just go hire someone and go, you just go work it out. 100% that will end in failure and misery and disappointment for everyone. But someone who you can say, hey, we need these kind of systems. We need checklists here. We need an accountability thing here. Can you build the thing to my spec? That's the kind of person you probably need to get in the business so that you can focus on the attention getting and the conversion piece. Now, Dan Martell in his book, Buy Back Your Time, he calls it the replacement ladder. And this is, I've been thinking about this for years. And I have a slightly different order to the replacement ladder that Dan Martell talks about. And the order that I would go in is admin. So how do you outsource the kind of lowest value tasks? If you're still answering your emails, you're doing it wrong, right? So find someone who's going to help you get out of the minutia, the lowest dollar value productive activities you can. The next thing is delivery. So you need someone who's then going to take over how to dealing with clients, delivering the product, delivering the service, all of that kind of stuff. So that gets sorted. The next thing you want to outsource is, in my opinion, in a service-based business, sales, because you can hire a salesperson, you can teach them a sales process. The next thing is marketing, because no one's going to be able to market the business better than you for some time. Okay, so you want to hold on to that to make sure you're driving the marketing and their traffic generation opportunities, and you're good at that, by the way. Then leadership. So that's when you then start to then elevate up. But the leadership conversation, that's $3 to $5 million business before we're having that leadership conversation. But that's the kind of sequence that you should be thinking about hiring and growing in your business.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. And that kind of answers my next question as well, because I was going to ask you that I wake up, for the past few weeks at least, I wake up every day thinking, oh shit, like what has gone wrong in the business? Because I have to keep on solving some issues, and there are very easy clients as well as very difficult clients who are like very particular about we need these things, but not necessarily unhappy with the service, but they're like very particular, and that kind of breaks the systems on the team's perspective. Like hiring an operations manager would solve that issue for me.
It's not a magic bullet. I just would really want to labor on this point. A lot of business owners think, that's right, I need to go and hire someone in operations. And they think just by hiring someone in operations, they'll just magically go and solve everything. That won't happen. And anytime you have that expectation, that you're going to set yourself up for failure and for them for failure. You need to hire someone who's got the skills and competencies to be able to do that kind of work that you can trust and give direction to so they can do the most effective work. You should never throw people at systems problems unless they're systems builders, but you should never get someone to build a system in a business that they don't understand and you're the only person who understands it. Otherwise, you'll get a system that doesn't work for the business. So you still need to guide, and you still need to be the one who's architecting, this is how this should work, but you want someone who's going to have the capabilities and the competencies to be able to do that kind of work. Make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
I want to touch on the mindset piece there, because you said you wake up every day and you're like, what's gone wrong today?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Like because we talked a lot about business side of things, and I have so much to now go back and work on. But I'm guessing like this thoughts that you're gonna get on a daily basis or shit,
Mm.
like a feeling of anxiety, I would say. How do you deal with that? Did you have that early on in your business? Because right now I'm feeling it because I had a safe paycheck, and I now going into doing my own business, and I'm
Mm.
making money, which is good. But now I have a lot to lose, and I'm just thinking, oh, if this breaks, I'm gonna lose all of these things. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, I love this question, right? So, um, firstly, you need to change your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have an expectation that things are supposed to be good and there's not supposed to be any fires, and if there's fires, that means there's something wrong, then you kind of got the wrong expectation of business. There's always going to be fires. Like I could probably count on one hand, maybe two hands, the amount of days or weeks where there've been like genuinely like no problems in the business, nothing for me to solve. I can remember a couple of times it's happened, and it usually has only ever lasted for 3 or 4 days. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is kind of weird and boring. Like nothing's broken. I don't need to. But like that's 3 or 4 days in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
so the reasonable expectation is there's always going to be something wrong.
Mm.
So if that's the first thing. So then if we get frustrated or we get distressed or we get anxious when our expectations don't match our reality, and it's our expectations that are wrong. So if your expectation is that,
Mm.
okay, guess what? I'm going to wake up every day and there's going to be shit that's broken every single day. Cool. All right, cool. So baseline, got it. Then you've got to tackle the fear piece, because what you mentioned there is like, what if this all goes bad? Like,
Mm.
what if everything goes wrong? What if the whole thing falls apart? What if this fails? The real question you got to ask yourself is, what do you got to lose?
Mm.
Like, what actually? Like, tell me, what have you got to lose? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Tell me, what would happen if it all fell apart? What would happen?
Well, hmm. I mean, I would just start another business, but like, could I lose the business? Is what I'm thinking, but I don't think I would. Like, I would just like fix it up and just move on. Yeah.
Bingo.
Mm.
So really, what's the worst case scenario?
Um, it's nothing. Yeah, it's
It's
just
nothing. It's
yeah.
nothing. It doesn't actually exist. It
Mm.
doesn't actually exist. Worst case
True.
scenario, geez, I don't know. I just keep going, I guess. Like what is the actual worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is that your current expectations don't get met. That's really the only thing. Oh, I want to
Mm.
make $1 million in a year. All right. What if you end up freaking going backwards? What if you get to like 100 grand and then, I don't know, like all the editors leave and all the clients hate you, and I don't know, you go back to, and what then? Oh, okay. So your expectation that you're going to get to $1 million didn't get met, but then what? You just get on with it. You just go, okay, well, I
Mm.
guess I'll learn from those mistakes and just keep going and make it better and not make those mistakes again and make a whole bunch of different mistakes, the
Mm.
next time around. Because we have this fear that everything's going to go wrong and we're going to lose everything. And it's all just ego. Because
Mm.
even like we're on track to do, I don't know, close to $30 million in the next 12 months. So business is, not a giant. We're not doing billions, but like it's a decent sized business.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so that's like, oh my God, there's a lot to lose. But really, is there? Like, is there? Because at the end of the day, like, I'll just get on with things. I'll just get on with life. The worst case scenario is that you have to, like, I don't know, couch surf for a little bit or something like that. You run out of money, and you just get on with it. And I've gone through that process quite a lot of times. The fear that
Mm.
you feel is like the fear of, what will people think of me if I fail?
Mm.
Or what will I think of myself if I fail? But these are all non-tangible, non-realistic, ego-based type things. The actual truth is you would just keep going. You would just keep going. And I'm sure you've heard it before, but you only lose when you quit. But it's completely true. And so if you just take quitting off the table, and say, well, it's a reasonable expectation that things are going to go wrong in the business. It's a reasonable expectation that there'll be something broken every single day. It's a reasonable expectation that even when things go well for a little while, they'll probably go bad for a little while too. Like, you should never expect that you're going to have a linear upward trajectory. You'll probably have some success, and then you'll probably have a ton of failures, and you'll be in the dip, and it'll be like, oh my God, everything's going bad. And as long as you just don't stop, the only outcome that you can get to is success. So there's 100% success rate if you just keep going and don't get upset with it. And there's 100% failure rate if you give up. So you just get to choose whichever one you want. And the net, you're not doing open heart surgery. So it's not like, if I stuff this up, someone's going to die. It's like, if I stuff this up, someone's going to get a bad video. You know, tough. Yeah. And so the risk that you feel is not real. What is, fear? False events appearing real. That's all it is. And the biggest transformation that I had in probably the last 18 months, because I'm pretty high on the anxiety end of the spectrum. In March of last year, I really started to think this through, and I said, who would I be and who would I become if I had no fear and no doubt? I used to worry about stuff all the time, like, oh my God, shit, is the business about to collapse? And oh my God, it's all gonna get. And as soon as I started letting go of the fear, so I started repeating a mantra to myself. I live without fear and doubt. I live without fear and doubt, and really started letting it go. And any time that I started getting anxious and had fear creep in, I'd be like, I live without fear and doubt, because none of it matters. None of it matters. And then what you actually find is you start to cruise through it, because everything works out as long as you keep going. And so I would try to worry less about the things that are happening. Just have an acceptance that it's all just stuff. Yeah, it's all this stuff going on. Okay, that's broken. That's fine. It's no different from like getting the wrong coffee order. If you go to a cafe, I ordered a cappuccino, they gave me a latte. Okay, whatever. Like, move on and just simmer that down, because you'll make far better decisions, because the fear you feel is not real.
Yeah, amazing. Look, Goose, I'm being mindful of your time. It's already 1 hour, and I just want to tell you that I'm practicing a lot of things that I learned from you, like the vision board. I do that every Monday. I don't do it every day. I do it every Monday. I just write down what I want to achieve daily, and what I'm doing today, and in 3 months, 6 months, 5 years, 25 years at the end of my life, what do I do? And all of these things have made so much of impact in my business as well as my personal life. So I love everything that you're doing. I love you as well as a person. And thank you so much for this. I have so much to now take back and action on.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for the kind words. I feel the same way about you. It's a real pleasure. And anything I can do to help, I'm here for it. And yeah, as long as this was useful and, and productive, then I've achieved what I wanted to do.
Yeah, amazing. And I think we should touch on this a little bit as well. You do mentor people. Do you want to talk about that as well, just a tiny bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I do some mentoring, kind of sort of like growth partnering with businesses as well. And we're kind of evolving what that offer looks like, because what I've found is that coaching is good, but what most people need is a little bit more than that. And it's very limited with the clients we take on. We only take on a couple of clients at a time, so that we can deliver a really high quality outcome, because we know that we can scale businesses really, really fast. And typically the kind of businesses that we have a real sweet spot we work with are service-based businesses or experience-based businesses, where, as opposed to e-com, I don't really know much about that. But, for example, you're an agency that's a service-based, finance, stuff like that can be service-based as well. So service-based businesses typically that are doing at least like $300,000 to $500,000 a year as a minimum. I and we've got a bit of a team that are kind of helping with this as well, are really good at getting people from that sort of 50 grand a month to the 3 to 5 million and even beyond, even 8 figures. But in that very first stage, there's a lot of fundamental stuff that kind of needs to be done. And Gabby's really good at that, but I have a little less patience for it. I'm kind of like scaling up is really, really sweet. But yeah, we do take on a few clients, and we're probably going to take on a few more this year. And so if you do have a business like that, and you are, looking for some help, feel free to reach out. And if we can't help, or if we don't have the capacity, I'll still try and provide you some advice or steer you in the right direction as well, for sure.
That's amazing. If I, I was going to say, if I was a business owner, I would jump in a heartbeat.
You're already doing it, Charlie.
That's so stupid. I had a stupid moment.
That's funny.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, I will talk to you soon.
My pleasure. If you want to do this again, you just let me know. Okay?
Amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Thanks, Goose.